Peace is the cornerstone of a harmonious world. It paves the way for progress, prosperity, and the well-being of nations. The importance of peace cannot be overstated. Now there is a new concept, honest peace, and it is possible only on the terms of the Ukrainian government. How we should work in today's episode. Meet Karolina Ashion.
The world has witnessed far too much bloodshed, which is why I proposed a formula for peace. It should be universal. These are the words of the Ukrainian president as he addressed the participants of the summit in Malta. We will discuss the war in Ukraine, what needs to be done to end it, and most importantly, how to conclude it with a just peace. The third meeting of national security advisors and foreign policy advisors took place in Malta, the capital of Malta. Ukraine gathered those who are ready to talk about the Ukrainian peace formula. These are 10 points that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky proposed in Indonesia during the G20 summit last year. We will talk about them in more detail a little bit later. Discussing Volodymyr Zelensky's peace formula is a way to communicate Ukraine's position to the world, and especially to countries that are neutral in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Another goal of such meeting is the creation of working groups that would work on the main topics of the peace formula. The meeting in Malta was a logical continuation of the previous two. The first round of negotiation took place in Copenhagen in June. Then only 15 participants took part in it. And during the second round in Jeddah in August, the number has already increased to 43. Now there are 66 participants. These are diplomats, international organizations, and delegation of a number of countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The Ukrainian delegation to Malta was headed by the head of the office of the president, Andriy Yermak. President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the participants of the summit online. He stated that this peace formula is gradually becoming global because many people have supported it or have shown effective interest in working with it. The Ukrainian president announced 3 important things that the Ukrainian peace formula can do.
First, the peace formula ensures the full force of the UN Charter to stop the aggression against our country and eliminate all its consequences, and thus can later become a model when the full power of international law can prevent other aggressions. Secondly, the peace formula enables each country to become a leader in its part and of its kind to restore peace and play an independent role in making peace. And the third, our joint efforts are laying the foundation for a new global tradition of unity. When helping one country end a war, it helps us learn how to end all wars.
The president's office explained the first meeting in Denmark was an introductory meeting. At the second meeting, the participants came to the conclusion that the peace formula is a certain theory which is important to translate into the language of practice, to understand exactly how it will be implemented in practice. But the meeting in Malta was constructive. Each working group presented its finding on each point with the most objective things. So in Malta, attention was focused on the 5 points of the peace formula. The first is nuclear and radiation safety. The working group talked about the withdrawal of Russian troops from Zaporizhzhia NPP and the determination of technical conditions for the safe return of the plant to Ukrainian control. There was also talk of strengthening the role of the IAEA in monitoring compliance with the rules for the operation of nuclear installations and responsibility for non-compliance with international nuclear safety principles. The second point is food safety. Obviously, it is necessary to establish international security guarantees for the uninterrupted supply of food. For these purposes, it is proposed to strengthen the protection of the port and logistic infrastructure in Ukraine to ensure the meaning of the sea lanes in the Black Sea necessary for safe shipping to Ukrainian ports. It was also discussed the need to ensure ships and cargo transported to and from seaports of Ukraine. The third is energy security. The plan for implementation of this item provides the development of an energy sustainability model as a part of the joint risk reduction strategy. Such a model should prevent any further aggression using energy as external leverage. The fourth point is release of all prisoners and deported persons. An international monitoring group should be created and a mechanism for collecting information about deported children, civilian hostages and prisoners of war should be established. There must be access to their places of detention, additional sanction against Russia and its officials for violations of international humanitarian law, international pressure on Russia to grant the UN and ICRC unhindered access to Ukrainian prisoners. Here I'd like to add that during the meeting, the Canadian delegation proposed to create an international coalition of states to return children deported by Russia. The head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, is convinced of the effectiveness of such a coalition. He also named a country that is already helping return Ukrainian children to their homeland.
Already today there are concrete results, so with the help of the country of Qatar we will be able to return a small number of our children, but this is only the beginning, and this is a real result of how the Ukrainian peace formula works.
And finally, the fifth item, restoration of the territorial integrity of Ukraine and the world order. The plan for the implementation of this item should improve the existing mechanism for the implementation of the principle of respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty enshrined in the UN Charter. In order to achieve the goals I mentioned, Ukraine offers the following. The first is what EU and I have already talked about more than once. Yes, this is it. Reform of the UN Security Council and limitation of the right of veto. The second is strengthening the role of the UN International Court of Justice by recognizing the court's mandatory jurisdiction in all disputes regarding violation of the UN Charter and ensuring the immediate implementation of its decisions. And the third is the creation of a system of early warning about actions that violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. Following the result of the summit, the co-chairs from Ukraine and Malta also published a joint statement. The document, once again, emphasizes that peace should be based on the principle of the UN Charter, respected for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, relevant resolutions of the UN General Assembly and international law. In addition, the statement records Ukraine's intention to organize a global summit on the peace formula at the level of state leaders. And now I'm ready to talk to my guest, Oleksandr Merezhko.
Watch this.
And I'd like to present our first guest, Oleksandr Merezhko, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, head of the Committee of Foreign Policy and Interparliamentary Relations. So, Oleksandr, thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, my first question is, I will not be mistaken if I say that the demand for peace is enormous. This applies not only to Ukraine. How important is leadership and initiative in this matter?
Well, leadership plays a key role, especially during times of war. And as for peace, well, there is absolutely no doubt that we Ukrainians are a very peace-loving country, and we want peace desperately, but we want just peace. By peace, we mean true peace, based firmly on international law and the UN Charter in particular. But we don't mean by that appeasement of the aggressor. Peace and appeasement are different things. They're diametrically opposed. And we are firmly on the side of peace. We want to implement peace on the basis of the peace formula presented by President Zelensky.
And my next question is, only the lazy didn't offer Ukraine a peace plan. China, Indonesia, Brazil, and even African version. What do you think this connected with? Why?
Well, quite frankly, I don't believe in these so-called peace plans because, first of all, to me, they look too abstract. They lack concrete steps, and they don't answer the key question regarding our territorial integrity and regarding observance of international law. And for this reason, I don't believe in these plans. And to me, again, the only solution, the only concrete solution based on the UN Charter is only the peace plan put forward by our president.
What exactly is your main conclusion after the summit in Malta? There was wide discussion whether it was reason to do that or not.
I believe that the summit in Malta was a huge success because we have 66 countries and international organizations which had joined peace formula by the President Zelensky. And in itself, it's already a huge success. It shows, it illustrates very clearly that majority of the countries in the world are supporting Ukraine, and they want Ukraine to help to restore peace, including our sovereignty and our territorial integrity.
So, Alexander, what do you think? When can we expect the summit at the level of heads of states? This is very important. And in general, how soon will it be? And where, maybe country, geography on the map, world map? And who will be the participants of the next summit, which I'd like to mention, summit at the level of heads of state? How far are we from this format?
It's hard to say anything about timing of this global summit of peace. It might take place in December this year, and we expected it to happen in December. Well, and actually, the Malta summit was the last step leading towards this global peace summit. So we can expect it either by the end of this year or in the beginning of the next year. And as for the venue, it's hard to say where it can be held. One of the venues, as it was offered, it might be New York City, the place where headquarters of the United Nations is located, or it can be any other place. But I'm sure that this global peace summit will be even more successful than summit in Malta, and more countries will take place, will participate in the global peace summit.
And tell us more about how is the work in groups, because it's very essential to understand what is the main advantages of this summit.
Well, to me, the formula which was put forward by President Zelensky is very flexible. It consists of 10 points, as we know, but any country can pick and choose. If, for example, a country prefers to focus on, say, nuclear security or food security, it can do it. So it gives lots of opportunities and options for each country in the world to choose what it prefers and to pursue a particular point or maybe all the points of the peace formula. And we'll see what will be the solution, will be the option of the countries.
And which countries do you think that participated in the summit, in your opinion, of course, are most interested in implementing the peace formula?
Well, I believe that all the countries in the world should be, objectively speaking, interested in implementation of this peace formula, because this peace formula is not only about Ukraine. It should be looked more broadly. This peace formula creates absolutely necessary guarantees of security for each country in the world. So I believe that each country, each member state of the UN should be interested. But of course, we are aware of the fact that we have our closest allies and friends, for example, Baltic states, Poland, European countries, who express the biggest, maybe, enthusiasm about peace formula, and they are more interested. For example, those countries who had a tragic historical experience dealing with Russia, they realize how important it is for them to pursue this peace formula and to secure their guarantee. Because Russia creates menace, creates danger to all the countries in the world, but especially to the neighboring states.
Representatives of which countries did you eventually manage to involve in the discussion of the peace formula? Which countries refused to participate, and how do they justify it?
Well, if we take the quantity, the number of membership at the UN, we see that there are 193 nations, 193 member states of the UN. And so far, in this implementation of this peace formula have taken part 66 countries and international organizations. But we should remember that it's only beginning. To me, it's too early to judge and to say who have refused to participate. For instance, China, one of the biggest countries in the world, it has participated in the previous summit. And the chances are that it will join this global peace summit in the future. So the work of our diplomacy continues, including parliamentary diplomacy, and we're trying to persuade as many countries as possible to join the implementation of this peace formula. And I'm sure that it will have a very positive effect, that more countries will definitely join this peace formula.
And the next question is about, we all know that representatives of 66 countries attended this meeting. I'll remind you that we start with 15 participants. And what are the plans and, if you want, ambitious for the next meeting?
Well, ideally, it would be great to persuade majority of the UN member states. But I don't know how many more countries will join. To us, it's important that we have global representation, that in this process participate not only European countries or the United States, but also countries representing the global South. And we see that the number of global South countries is growing. And I'm sure that in the future we will have more such countries representing all the continents, all cultures, all major civilizations.
And my next question is that the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, assures that despite the event in the Middle East, Ukraine remains the focus of world attention. Is it possible to shift this emphasis in the near future? And how do we prevent it? Because this is really very important. Everybody talk about we can be shift because of the events in the Middle East. It's a serious issue.
Well, there is such an issue. We should admit this, because Russia will be trying to use any opportunity to any conflict in the world in order to divert attention away from its aggression against Ukraine. So Russia will be doing in this regard everything it can. But I can assure you that Ukrainian issue, the issue of Russian aggression against Ukraine, remains high on the world agenda. As an example, I can give you, I have just returned from the Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, and which includes representatives of all the parliaments in the world, almost all the parliaments, and the issue of Ukraine remains to be on radar, so to speak, of the Interparliamentary Union. And the same holds true for Interparliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. This international organization continues to adopt resolutions in support of Ukraine. So the issue of Ukraine will remain in the global agenda while the war continues.
And maybe it will be my last question, but it's very important to understand the situation on the situation, the agenda, and everything which is about this summit. Okay, sorry. So representatives of Armenia, representatives from this country, Armenia, also flew to Valletta. The country did not participate in the two previous summits. What can the presence of Yerevan indicate?
Well, I think it's, politically speaking, it's a very important and serious sign, which means that even a country which was viewed before as an ally of Russia, it begins to understand that Russia is too toxic for this country, that with Russia, Armenia has no future, and it should change its, so to speak, political behavior. And the fact that Armenia is making steps in the direction of Ukraine is very encouraging. And it's a good example for other countries which still remain under Russian influence.
So, Oleksandr, thank you very much for taking the time for this conversation and for being with us. It will be very interesting to talk to you. Oleksandr Merezhko, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, head of the Committee of Foreign Policy and Interparliamentary Relations, was with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was nice to talk to our guest, and let's continue our show.
Watch this.
Interestingly, every third country that participated in the meeting in Malta is a country from the global south. And this is what really triggers Russia, the Office of President of Ukraine believes. After all, the Kremlin is worried about the fact that official Kyiv has productive and effective communications with a number of countries of the global south. Minister of Foreign Affairs Dmytro Kuleba said that the summit in Valletta destroys two myths. The first is about the decline in attention to Ukraine against the background of the events in the Middle East. And the second, about Ukraine's loss of support from the so-called global south.
Watch this.
My next guest is from Germany. He is a scientist, and I'm ready to ask him about our current agenda. I'm excited to ask a few questions to our new guest. This is Sergiy Sumlenny. Mr. Sumlenny is a political scientist. So thank you very much for taking time to this conversation. So,
thank you for having invited me.
And let me start with this question. The summits regarding the Ukrainian peace formula are supposedly a small party between Ukraine and the NATO states, according to Russian propaganda claims. The meeting in Malta, in my opinion, completely refuted this ridiculous thesis. Why it is essential to work with the global south?
Well, we know that the Russia's positions in the global south are traditionally stronger than anyone wished. And Russia plays its play of lie. On one hand, it tells the story of anti-colonialism, of right of the nations for self-determination, which are the topics which the global south gladly listens because they have this history of being oppressed. But at the same time, Russia oppresses its own neighbors. Russia runs colonial wars, classic colonial wars of the 19th century. And that is the part of the story which Russia doesn't tell in the global south. And in this twisted reality, which Russia creates also with its propaganda media, the consequence is that the countries which Russia assaults with its colonial wars, like Ukraine, Georgia, but also other countries like Kazakhstan or others which Russia tries to oppress economically, they look to be like in the eyes of the global south, they often look to be as the agents of the United States out of this twisted logic. Those who oppose Russia and being supported by the US should be agents of global imperialism, which is, as we know, utterly false and is total lie, because Ukraine fights for its independence and against Russian colonialism. And that is the story we need to explain in the global south.
Yes, before the events in the Middle East, the situation seems to be not as severe as it's now, for my opinion. The head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, assures that despite the event in the Middle East, Ukraine remains the focus of world attention. Is it possible to shift this emphasis in the near future, and how do we prevent it? How do you prevent it? It's very important.
Well, it is almost impossible to hold the focus of attention of the global community for such a long time as Ukraine is doing, like for almost 2 years. And we know, of course, that such conflicts, such emotionally loaded conflicts as the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, of course, when something starts to burn there, then the attention of many people is already locked on Israel, on Palestine, because people feel personally connected to this region. So from this perspective, of course, the current escalation in Israel is something which drives attention from Ukraine. And I think that was the Russians' calculation. That was what Russia wanted to achieve, to continue its assault against Ukraine, while Ukraine is being overshadowed by another conflict. But I don't think that it is something we may constantly fight and say, oh, don't tell about Palestine, don't tell about Israel, tell only about Ukraine, because people feel connected with many topics. And again, we still have very strong attention to Ukraine. And if we continue to spread the word and continue to explain why Ukraine is important, why you cannot only focus on one conflict simultaneously, on one conflict at the same time, we can win hearts and minds of the people, because Ukraine still remains important. And if Russia prevails in Ukraine, it will prevail also in other regions, and it is not in the interest of many people in this world.
So, and what will be your answer? You just mentioned that we have to do everything to make understandable for everybody in this world why Ukraine is so important. And what will be your answer on this question? Why?
Yeah, my answer the same moment you ask it is because when Ukraine fails, other nations will fail too. Because when Ukraine fails, it will be opening the gates of the hell, because every dictator in the world will know he may start a war of aggression, he may kill hundreds of thousands of people, deport people, torture, rape, execute, steal values, do everything they want, starting from the ecocide, ending to mass deportation of children, and he will be awarded for that by granting new territories. And we cannot imagine what sort of attractivity this mindset has for dictators worldwide. We see that dictators, they already forge their new unions. We see that that countries which are about to oppress their neighbors, they are sharing knowledge with Russia. They are starting new alliances, and this is not what we may allow to happen. We want to have a peace. We want to have the world where nations live in peace, where no nation starts a war to get a part of the territory of a neighbor, where no nation kidnaps tens of thousands of children, where no nation sends its troops saying them, destroy everything you see, burn the crops, destroy the libraries, rape women, and come back as heroes. It is not the world what we want to live. We lived once in such world, like hundreds of years ago. We don't want to come back there. If Ukraine fails, this will be the world where we will have to live. And believe me, nobody wants it. Seriously, nobody wants it. Like many people, many hotheads say, oh, there will be nothing bad. Putin will just get what he wants and he will stop. No, it's not even about Putin. And if he stops or not, I personally don't believe he will stop. But it's about another dictators who will see, oh, he did it, he got rewarded, I will do the same.
What does China's absence at the summit mean? I mean, in the Malta summit. Is this a signal was hidden? Is it possible to talk to the global south without this country, I mean China?
Well, it is something which is regrettable that China decided not to attend. And of course, China is an important voice in the world, and China has a very strong influence in the global south, especially in Africa in particular. But it is, I would say, it is more a sign of moral weakness. If China had their agenda, which they could present and which they could defend on this summit, which would be like different compared to what Ukraine, for example, is ready to say, they should have come and presented it and openly challenged Ukraine and say, look, we have our different view. But like hiding and deciding to ignore this open, democratic and peaceful summit is not a right choice by China, I believe. But after all, we have seen a very ambiguous role of China in this war, as China tried to camouflage itself as a peace mediator and peaceful power, which can offer some sort of peace plan, this 12 steps or 10 steps plan. But if you read it carefully, you will see that the expertise, Chinese expertise on what is going on in Ukraine is very limited, and many advices and many solutions China suggested were at least naive. So now one should ask himself or herself, was it the consequence of bad will, of manipulation, or were Chinese diplomats not so clever as many believe they are? Maybe they're just ignorant.
There is another country, this is a country which is interesting. The position of this country is really interesting. A representative of Armenia also flew to Valletta, and we know that the country did not participate in the two previous summits. What can the presence of Yerevan indicate, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is good that Armenia is visiting, and we know that Armenia is now trying to find out where is its place. The military alliance with Russia, which was Armenia's idea to have like some sort of security guarantees against Azerbaijan and guarantees of existence of what they call Artsakh, what the other world calls Nagorno-Karabakh. This bet was lost. Like Russia has abandoned Armenia and openly mocked Armenia during the last military tensions with Azerbaijan, when Azerbaijan got control of Karabakh. So now Armenia tries to find out where is its place. Should it support Russia as fiercely as it has before, or should it maybe find other ways of playing more moderate game on the international stage? So I think that any contact on this summit with any country which has experience of being oppressed by Russia, and Armenia, of course, has a long history of being oppressed by Russia. Even now, Russian troops are being stationed on Ukraine on the rules which are very unfavorable for Armenia. And Russia sells energy to Armenia exactly in this oppressing way of pumping money out of Armenia. I think it's good that these countries visited Malta summit, also because their experience of what is Russian oppression, what is Russian colonialism, can be helpful on this international stage.
So, Mr. Sumlenny, I'll not be mistaken if I say that the demand for peace in the world is enormous. This applies not only to Ukraine. How important is leadership and initiative in this matter?
Well, leadership always decides, and you cannot have a successful foreign policy without your country being led by a politician who is a fierce supporter of peace and who is not afraid of making steps. Like, you can think about the United States, the biggest economy in the world, who is unfortunately now acting very cautiously, thinking more, as many say, about not provoking Russia than about defeating Russia and providing stable peace. Or think about my country, Germany, the strongest economy in Europe, but still very reluctant in anything what regards the protecting of peace and making strong decisive steps. That is exactly the fruitful soil for all possible ways for the dictators to blackmail us. Because when the dictators know that the thing we are afraid of most is the war, they will threaten us with war. They will say, do that, or don't do that or that, or otherwise I will start a war. And we remain reluctant, but they start the war anywhere. It was the talk of Putin all the time, like, don't provoke me, don't send help for Ukraine, or otherwise I will attack Ukraine. The West didn't send weapons to Ukraine, or at least until the last weeks. So what Putin did, he attacked Ukraine while Ukraine was unprotected and while Ukraine had clearly not enough weapons. So that is, I think, the biggest disbalance in power between democracies and autocracies or totalitarian states. Democracies value peace, and they are ready to do almost everything for peace. Autocracies are not afraid of war because they don't value human life. But in this fight, one day, democracies must say, to protect our peace and to protect freedom in the world, we must risk and we must face the challenges, because otherwise we will have the war anyway, but in worse situation. So this summit is about protecting peace, but we cannot protect peace while being vulnerable and while being weak. To protect peace, we must be strong, decisive, and our adversaries, our totalitarian adversaries, must know that.
Mr. Sumlenny, it was nice to talk to you. Thank you very much and have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for such interesting conversation, and it's time to continue this show. I suggest recalling the following 5 points of the Ukrainian peace formula. So this is the withdrawal of Russian troops and the cessation of hostilities, tribunal for perpetrators of aggression and compensation for damages, countering ecocides, security guarantees for Ukraine to prevent escalation, and the last, so desired and long-awaited, the fixation of the end of the war. More and more countries are supporting Ukraine in the diplomatic arena, and statements that Ukraine should make concessions to Russia in order to end the war are no longer so loud, emphasized the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba.
Please note, during the same 6 months, numerous peaceful initiatives that offered Ukraine to give up territories to exchange something or other unacceptable things have disappeared from the info field. Currently, the center of all discussions is the fair and honest Ukrainian formula, which fully complies with the principles of the UN Charter and key resolutions of the General Assembly. And this is the first very concrete result of the formula.
I will remind you that a number of countries have already proposed their peace initiatives, the essence of which most often boils down to freezing the conflict. The most talked about was China's peace plan, which consisted of 12 points. It was supported by Belarus, Iran, Kazakhstan, and Hungary. And the president of the Russian Federation said that this initiative can be taken as a basis for a peaceful settlement. The US said that the Chinese initiative only plays into the hands of Moscow. There was also a peace initiative by Indonesia. I won't go in its details, but the president's office called the plan a twin of the Russian capitulation proposal. President Zelensky's peace formula is a real platform for ending the war and platform for returning to international law. It is gradually becoming global, and the summit in Malta shows this once again. Volodymyr Zelensky is convinced that the Ukrainian peace formula can and should be universal. Eventually, it may become a model for similar enforcement of the full force of international law in the event of other aggressions. A joint plan for its implementation is needed to reflect not one or another national position, but the position of people, all of humanity. And it is precisely such a joint plan of action that must be prepared and taken to the Global Peace Summit at the level of leaders, approved and implemented.
Watch this.
And it's my pleasure to introduce you our next guest. And this is Peeter Taim, political scientist. Good afternoon, Peter.
Good evening.
So, and let me start our conversation with this question, because this is directly related to our topic, I'm sure. So, my question is, Iran will chair the Human Rights Forum this Thursday. Isn't this yet another proof that international institutions, as well as international law, do not work at all?
It's absolutely insane situation. And me personally, I'm not surprised because I'm a political scientist and interested person, let's say, who is serving situation, what is going on with Russia already for last 23 years since war criminal Putin came to power and started to be a president of Russian Federation. And already this previous 23 years, you know, it's like already, it's not a phenomenon, it's like a meme, Orthodox communist. It means that controversial things, absurd things, I'm quite used with that. And this situation where the biggest criminals sitting in a Security Council of UN and the worst countries, almost it's not a country, it's a nightmare, leading questions about human rights. It means that somehow I would like to say that I want to leave this planet because everything I see every day there is all the time coming news which absolutely shocking me.
Me too. Me as well. Everybody just shocked with all this current agenda in our crazy world. But do you think it could be all end up in the fact that many years later, in history history books, the concept of Zelensky's peace formula will be studied as one of the unsuccessful attempt to end this terrible Russian-Ukrainian war?
In all my interviews, I'm using all the time, maybe sometimes even a little bit too much, but I think it's absolutely justified that I'm using all the time a new date. It's the 7th of October 2023. A lot of things changed after this day, because many questions, many thoughts, many discussions, many debates were one thing before 7th of October. And after 7th of October, we have to change absolutely our narratives, our point of views, how to deal with all things, what is going around us. Because if we talk about this Ukrainian and Vladimir Zelensky's peace initiative before 7th of October, there was kind of logical chain, let's say, that everything started in Copenhagen, somehow it was okay, nothing happened seriously, but at least it was a beginning. That many countries, even somehow, you know, controversial countries, let's say even competitors, even enemies, they came together to sit around the same table. Same happened in Jeddah. And all logical change showed us that there is a big hope to achieve something very serious. If many countries who understood, doesn't matter in which bloc they belong, the main signal was that Russia wasn't invited to sit around this table. It already was very optimistical for me that finally many countries, doesn't matter what kind of political regimes they have, they understood that doesn't matter what you are doing, what is your ideology, what is your religion, what is your regime. Many of countries understood that there is a main threat for our planet is Russia. After 7th of October, situation changed rapidly. And somehow I'm very glad that in Malta, in the last meeting on last weekend, there was already 66 countries, but there was no China. This is a very important signal that, okay, many countries came, more and more countries are concerned about situation, and not only concerned, they are ready to listen message from Zelensky. They are ready to listen, to debate Ukrainian peace formula or initiatives. But again, I'm very worried about that China didn't participate. From another hand, leader of China is going soon to meet with the President of the United States. Again, there is a hope. Maybe something going to happen in positive way. Again, it's quite, let's say honestly, I'm quite confused to give very qualitative or, I don't know, or normal analyze for everything what is going on. And your first question about this Iranian, what happened with Iran and this, let's say, leading of this human rights talks, this shows that absolutely unpredictable situation we have at the moment in our world.
Unfortunately, yes, absolutely unpredictable situation. Nobody knows what's around the next corner. But how important is leadership and initiative in matter of peace in general? It's Ukraine, it's the country which is in war, embroiled in war, but we are sort of leaders, and we push this peace agenda, trying to push.
I think it's very important. It's a crucial role of Ukraine in this peace formula. I try to put in a frame somehow in a understandable frame. question is not about just that Ukraine is a victim of aggression in this terrible war. In this moment, Ukraine is also initiator of a new peace talk. No, even not new peace talks. This country is even initiating and creating a new world order, I can say, because even the President of the United States already admitted, because I'm talking about UN and absolutely impotence of this international organization already, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And now, finally, the leader of the biggest democracy already said it, that we can't go ahead anymore like this. We have to do something. And this initiative from Ukrainian side, it's how to say, very, very important. And it's not only about security of Ukraine. It's about security of our, I don't know, humankind.
Yes, exactly. Making forecasts is a thankless task. I understand it. But still, how far is it until the end of the war? And what or who does it depend on in the first place?
Before 7th of October, it was somehow easy to predict. At least we hoped very, very much victory for Ukraine. And victory for Ukraine didn't mean for us, I mean for people who are against aggression, against war. It's also meant for us not only winning or victory of the war by Ukraine, it also was a big victory for entire civilized size of our humankind, and for democracy as well, for democratic countries. After 7th of October, the pictures, what I have to see, all of us, we can see in capital cities of European countries, even gay participants of gay parades supporting Palestine. I would like to call to mental institution and to go to speak with doctor. Maybe it's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't understand something. I don't know what is going on. It's insane. I'm absolutely dismissed. I don't know what to do, what to think, because it's crazy. It's a crazy situation, and I don't know how far it goes. This is a main question for me. I can't be anymore so sure about situations that there are part of our humanity who are against the war, and another part of humanity who are in favor of the war. Now it's absolutely mixed. It's so insane to see such kind of developments in heads of people living in normal, free countries. That's why it's a big question. It's a very big question. For example, I'm not only political scientist. I'm in everyday life, I'm a youth worker, and already I knew it before during COVID. And during many talks about flat Earth believers, I already started to think that I think many of us, I mean teachers and youth workers, in our previous 20, 30 years, we failed. We failed in our work. Because when I see all these pictures, insane pictures where young people supporting terrorism and terrorists, I can admit that I failed as a youth worker, and my colleagues, teachers also are failed absolutely. Something went very, very wrong. And how we going to deal with that? At the moment, I have no answer.
It seems that nobody have the certain answer. And I'd like to ask you, so there is a widespread opinion in Ukraine that Russia, in its current form, should not exist. The West is not ready, as we can see, for the collapse of Russian Federation. I don't know, but I'm sure that the West is not ready for this scenario. In your opinion, is a post-war world without Russia a reality or an unattainable goal?
Maybe your viewers doesn't know that my name is Peeter Taim, but actually by my origin and by my nationality, I'm 100% Russian, and but born in Estonia, but assimilated. It means I identify myself as Estonian, and I'm giving a lot of interviews in our media, I mean here in Estonia, for our Russian speakers, to explain all the situation and my point of view, my understanding about the political situation in our country and also in entire world. And many of my colleagues and many of my friends calling me that, Peter, you are Russian, but you are the biggest Russophobe in the world, at least in my country. Why I told you this? Because me as a Russophobe, the biggest Russophobe, I'm dreaming about collapse of Russian Empire. This territorial phenomena, which is called Russia. But being a realist, I don't believe so much about it. It's too big. First of all, too big territory. Second, too big amount, huge amount. 130 million people. Let's say, again, me as a Russophobe, I'm telling, insane people. It's crazy. Like also one Russian dissident, Gennady Gudkov, all the time, his interview, he's telling, guys, I don't know what to do with this bunch of people, this 130 million. I don't know what to do with them. After Second World War, we know what happened with German population, what the entire world made with Germans. They worked with them 20 years to, let's say, to punch out from them this national Nazism and fascism. I don't know what to do with this our insane neighbors. Really, I don't know.
What do you think? Which country is now the best friend of Ukraine?
Estonia.
Let it be.
No, of course.
Yes,
I'm joking. Not I'm joking that we're the best, but let's say all European Union, even with this crazy, stupid guy, Prime Minister of Hungary. Hungarians are also on our side, I mean on the bright side of humanity. And of course, United States, Canada, Australia, we are all the biggest supporters, biggest friends of Ukraine at the moment. And believe me, for example, I would do something more. Just not only to donate to a Ukrainian army or to send, for example, I send my personal car to the front to Ukraine to help fighters in Ukraine. If there would be something else, how to help, I would gladly do it. But our resources are limited, especially not my personal resources, but resources of our little country, Estonia.
Anyway, thank you.
That's why a bigger and richer country should help more.
Should help more to Ukraine. I'm totally agree with you, and thank you to your country, and thank you for your support of Ukraine, and thank you for your time and answering our questions, Mr. Taim. Thank you.
Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.
Watch this.
Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope to see you soon in a week in our next show. Bye.